Opening hello and welcome. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and leave a like on this video. Your support is essential for us to continue bringing incredible and inspiring stories like the one you're about to watch. Share this with your friends and family, because Biddy Mason's story needs to be known by everyone. And now, get ready to meet one of the most extraordinary women in American history. Imagine being born into a world where your life doesn't belong to you, where every breath, every step, every moment of your day is controlled by someone else. This was the world of Bridget, known as Biddy Mason, who came into this world in August 1818 in the state of Mississippi, in the heart of the slaveholding American South. Biddy was born enslaved. She never knew her mother freely, never had the right to choose her own path. From a very young age, she was separated from her biological family and sold as property, as if she were just another object. But inside that girl was something no slave master could buy or control: an unbreakable spirit, an iron determination. On the Mississippi plantations, Biddy worked from childhood. Her small hands quickly learned the hard labor in the cotton fields under the scorching southern sun. But Biddy had a special gift. She observed, learned, absorbed knowledge like a sponge. Over time, she became a skilled midwife and nurse, bringing hundreds of babies into the world and caring for the sick, both enslaved and free. In 1836, Biddy was transferred to the property of Robert Marion Smith in South Carolina and later in Mississippi. It was there that she became a mother to 3 daughters, Ellen, Anne, and Harriet. The father of these children remains a historical mystery, possibly one of the white men on the property. Biddy loved her daughters with an intensity only a mother can know, and that love would become the driving force of her life. The 1840s was a period of great transformation in the United States. The California gold rush attracted thousands of people westward, seeking wealth and new opportunities. Robert Smith, converted to the Mormon Church and seeking land in the West, decided to join a wagon train heading to California in 1851. And here begins the epic journey of Biddy Mason. She, her 3 daughters, and other enslaved people owned by Smith were forced to walk more than 1,700 miles, crossing mountains, deserts, and rivers. Imagine 1,700 miles on foot, herding cattle, caring for children, facing snowstorms in the Rocky Mountains, the unbearable heat of the deserts, the dangers of wild animals and hostile native tribes. Biddy walked barefoot or in crude shoes, carrying her small daughters when they could no longer walk. At night, after an exhausting day of walking, she still had to care for the sick in the wagon train, attend births, and ensure her daughters were safe. It was 6 months of brutal journey, but each step took her closer to something she couldn't yet fully comprehend: freedom. The wagon train arrived in San Bernardino, California. In late 1851, California had entered the Union as a free state in 1850, which meant that, technically, slavery was illegal there. But Robert Smith ignored that law. He kept Biddy and the others enslaved on his property, isolated from society, working as if they were still in Mississippi. For 3 years, Biddy worked on Smith's land, caring for her family and the other enslaved people, always observing, always learning. She listened to conversations, absorbed information about California laws, about freedom, about rights, and slowly, a seed began to germinate in her heart: hope. Smith soon realized that keeping slaves in California was becoming risky. The authorities were beginning to pay attention, and the free black community in Los Angeles was growing. In 1855, he planned a bold move: take all his enslaved people to Texas, where slavery was still legal and protected. For Biddy, this was a death sentence for her dreams of freedom. Texas would mean a return to chains, with no hope of escape. But fate, or perhaps courage, was about to intervene in Biddy Mason's life. The year 1855 was the turning point in Biddy Mason's life. Robert Smith had organized everything for the move to Texas, keeping his plans secret, moving quickly to avoid any interference. But Biddy was not alone. During her years in San Bernardino and her occasional visits to Los Angeles to work as a midwife, she had met members of the city's free black community. Among these people was Robert Owens, a free black man who had become prosperous in Los Angeles, and Charles White, his brother-in-law. These men knew that slavery was illegal in California and were determined to help those still living under the yoke of bondage. When Biddy managed to get a desperate message to them about Smith's plans to take her to Texas, they acted quickly. In January 1856, as Smith prepared the wagon train to depart, Robert Owens filed a petition in the Los Angeles District Court. He claimed that Smith was about to illegally remove free persons from the state of California. The sheriff was sent to intercept the group before they crossed the border into Texas. Imagine the moment, Biddy and her daughters, already on their way to Texas, being stopped by the sheriff. Her heart must have beaten like a war drum. Was this her chance? Or would it be just another disappointment in a life full of them? The sheriff ordered Smith to return to Los Angeles for a court hearing. Smith was furious, confident that his word as a white man would prevail over any claims by black people. But California was not Mississippi. The trial began in January 1856 in Judge Benjamin Hayes's courtroom. This was an extraordinary moment in American history. Biddy Mason, a woman who had spent her entire life as someone else's property, was now before a judge, fighting for her freedom and that of her daughters. But there was a huge problem. According to the laws of the time, black people could not testify in court against white people in California. Biddy could not speak in her own defense. She could not tell the judge about the years of forced labor, about the brutal walk through the desert, about her dreams of freedom. She had to remain silent while others decided her fate. Robert Smith argued that these people were his legal property, brought from Mississippi before California became a free state. He claimed he had the right to take them wherever he wanted. His arrogance was palpable. He expected the court to simply agree with him and let him leave. But Judge Hayes was a man of principle. He called Biddy and the other enslaved people into his private chambers. There, away from the public eye and the formal restrictions of the courtroom, he did something revolutionary. He talked to them. He looked into Biddy's eyes and asked what she wanted. And for the first time in her life, Biddy Mason could speak for herself. With a firm and clear voice, she told the judge that she wanted to be free, that she wanted her daughters to be free, that she did not belong to Robert Smith, that no human being belongs to another. Judge Hayes listened, and he understood. On January 14, 1856, he delivered his decision. Biddy Mason and her daughters, along with other members of the group, were legally free. Smith had no rights over them. Slavery was illegal in California, and these people were now free citizens. Imagine that moment. Biddy was 38 years old. For the first time in nearly 4 decades of life, she owned herself. Her daughters would grow up in a world where they would be free. The chains, invisible but so real, had been broken. But freedom, Biddy would soon discover, was just the beginning. Now she had to build a life, from scratch, without resources, without formal education, in a society that still viewed black people with deep prejudice. The question was no longer whether she would be free, but what she would do with that freedom. And Biddy Mason, with the same determination that had sustained her through thousands of miles of desert, was about to show the world what she was capable of. Freedom tastes sweet, but it also brings immense challenges. Biddy Mason walked out of the courthouse in 1856 with her daughters, legally free, but with practically nothing. No money, no property, no formal education. But she had something far more valuable: skills, determination, and an unshakable faith in herself. Biddy settled in Los Angeles, a city that at the time had only about 3,000 inhabitants. She returned to the work she knew and loved, nursing and midwifery. Her reputation as a skilled midwife spread quickly. She walked the city on foot, visiting homes of rich and poor, white and black, bringing babies into the world and caring for the sick. Biddy charged those who could pay and treated free of charge those who had no resources. She worked tirelessly, saving every penny she earned. While many would spend that money on immediate comforts, Biddy had a bigger vision. She watched the city grow, saw land being bought and sold, and understood something fundamental. Property was power, was security, was legacy. In 1866, 10 years after gaining her freedom, Biddy Mason did something extraordinary. With her savings, she purchased a lot on Spring Street, in the heart of Los Angeles, for $250. This was a historic milestone. Biddy became one of the first black women to own property in Los Angeles. But she didn't stop there. Biddy had a keen instinct for investments. She bought more properties, always in areas she believed would appreciate in value. And she was right. Los Angeles was growing rapidly, and Biddy's lots increased in value exponentially. That woman who had walked barefoot through the desert, enslaved, was now building a real estate empire. By the 1880s, Biddy Mason was one of the wealthiest women in Los Angeles. with properties valued at about $300,000, an immense fortune for the time. But wealth did not change her heart. Biddy never forgot where she came from, never forgot what it was like to have nothing. Her home on Spring Street became a refuge for those in need. Biddy fed the hungry, sheltered the homeless, visited prisoners in jails. During the floods of 1884, that devastated Los Angeles, she personally provided food and supplies to displaced families, spending thousands of dollars from her own pocket. Biddy was deeply religious and saw her wealth as a responsibility, not just a privilege. In 1872, she was instrumental in founding the first African Methodist Episcopal Church, the first black church in Los Angeles. She donated the land and financed much of the construction. This church would become a pillar of the city's black community, a place of worship, education, and civil rights activism. She also helped establish schools and orphanages, always working behind the scenes, preferring action to publicity. Biddy believed in giving people tools to build their own lives, not just temporary handouts. Her daughters grew up and married well, thanks to the financial security and opportunities Biddy provided them. She saw her grandchildren born free, educated, prosperous. The cycle of slavery and poverty that had defined generations of her family was broken by her courage and work. Biddy Mason passed away on January 15, 1891, at the age of 73. She was buried in Evergreen Cemetery in Los Angeles. For decades, her grave remained unmarked, her name almost forgotten by history. But in 1988, nearly a century after her death, the city of Los Angeles finally recognized Biddy Mason's legacy. A tombstone was placed on her grave, and a memorial was erected on Broadway, near the site where her home on Spring Street once stood. This memorial, 81 feet long, tells her story through art and text, ensuring that future generations know this extraordinary woman. Biddy Mason's story teaches us timeless lessons. She shows us that the circumstances of our birth do not define our destiny, that the courage to fight for justice can change not only our life, but the lives of future generations. That true success is measured not only by accumulated wealth, but by the positive impact we leave on the world. Biddy walked more than 1,700 miles chained to slavery, but each step took her closer to freedom. And when she finally gained that freedom, she didn't keep it selfishly. She shared it, multiplied it, transformed it into opportunities for others. Today, when we walk the streets of Los Angeles, we are walking on Biddy Mason's legacy. Every church, every school, every charity that helps those in need carries a bit of her spirit. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video. Biddy Mason's story deserves to be known, celebrated, and remembered. Leave in the comments what you admired most about this incredible woman. And remember, each of us has the power to make a difference, just as Biddy did. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next inspiring story.